Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, and with Shane Brophy, Head of Sport in the Nina Guardian. Shane, how are things with you this morning?
It's bad. Shane, how's tricks?
Oh sure, you're just kind of thinking, can we ever get a bit of luck at all? But realistically, against Offaly the other day, it wasn't really about luck. The better team did win on the day. Very good season for Tipperary, but just wasn't to be.
No, and I was a bit... I suppose I wasn't. Well, I knew we had the ability to win, but I was a bit worried going into the game, just based on the Munster final performance, that if we maybe if some of the things that came up that night repeated itself again, we could have been in a bit of trouble. And look, that's how it transpired. Look, when it comes to finals, especially underage finals, a lot of the time it's all in the day, and you got to impose yourself on the games. And look, we didn't do that to the same extent Offaly did. Like, I thought our work rate, our application was top class. I just thought our tactical setup, and I know it's a setup we've been using all year, I just thought it came against us on the day. Like, the sweeper has served as well. We only conceded one goal in the championship, but look, I thought last weekend there was an opportunity there against Offaly where we could have maybe just taken them on a bit more in the forwards, gone man and man. But look, the management stayed with their game plan, and maybe that's probably where I think we fell short. I think Offaly had a bit more confidence and belief and go. That's like the just in terms of playing to their own strengths, and maybe we were still more concerned about keeping things tight at one end rather than playing to our strengths at the other.
Okay, well, delighted to say we're joined by Paul Carroll of Tip FM. You were there on the day, Paul. It finished up a 6-point win for Offaly, 220-214. What was it like to commentate on?
It was an unbelievable occasion, really. What was there, just under 26,000 at it. When they crossed over to us on Tip FM to go into the commentary, they're saying, "Oh, what's the atmosphere like?" I didn't even have to say anything because you could just hear the roar of the crowd when they were doing the march around the field. It was an unreal occasion. Probably just came in there at the end of what Shane was saying. I probably agree a bit. I felt maybe our setup in the forwards particularly wasn't. It probably should have changed maybe a bit sooner. I thought a lot of ball went into either Darren McCarthy or Senan Butler when they were kind of isolated 1 versus 3, 1 versus 4 at times as well. Now the lads, the backs were probably under a bit of pressure at times to just kind of make clearances off the back foot and things like that. That's probably more a testament to Offaly than anything. But yeah, I just thought the setup at that time, just up the forwards, and a lot of puck outs went to Turgeinen, the wing back. And I'd say it felt like 4 or 5 times in the second half where just under the stand where the media was in, the puck out was coming this side to Turgeinen. He was playing it down the line to Shane Rigney, and Rigney would either win the ball, win a free, or it would break through to Screeney. So I felt like we played kind of that style all year, kind of, but I still feel we at least had 2 up in the forwards for most of the time, whereas it was kind of 1 at times the other day. So it made it kind of hard on ourselves. But overall, you couldn't really begrudge Offaly. They were probably the better team on the day, and they got the breaks you need in the final. A long ball dropping into the back of the net and things like that. So unreal occasion, just kind of disappointment because you felt like there was probably a little bit more in Tipperary that probably didn't come out on Saturday evening. And
Shane, that goal that Offaly scored, the one just talking about there, Barry Egan, the ball was knocked in. Barry Egan, a defender, and our goalkeeper all went up for the one time. Part of that, I suppose, is just a bit more experience, and you deal with those situations a bit better. And maybe all of a sudden, Offaly don't get that run, that burst from the crowd, and maybe Tipperary to stay in the game a little bit longer. So, something like that. I mean, it'll probably come across as I'm defending the setup and all that kind of stuff. And but some of that is outside of the setup.
Oh yeah, look, and it probably was. Like, Owen Horgan had a fantastic campaign, and look, he pulled off a blinding save in the first half from Adam Screedy. But yeah, I thought he looked a bit jittery in the second half. I think he would probably look back himself as I didn't need to go for that ball. I should have just left it, just stay out of it. Let Aaron O'Halloran go with Barry Egan, and we'll see what happens. Like, when you when you go like that, you have to take man ball and everything out. And look, it missed everyone. And like when you go 8 points down, playing on the back foot, in a 26,000 ground where there's probably 19,000-20,000 awfully, like you're really under pressure then. But in fairness, like they came back twice, like to get back within 3, but just I never thought, apart from the first 15 minutes, we played the game in our terms. Like it was always seemed to be that we awfully have started playing this style the whole time for years, and they even when maybe things are going against them, they'll just stick to their process. Whereas, just talking to talking to Paddy through the year, and like I was talking to Tony Deason, the Offaly coach, who's from Burgess, and Paul probably knows him pretty well. That he was amazed at the transformation in Tipperary this year from a challenge match early in the year, where Tipperary were still playing the same running game as last year. And he said they more or less binned it at short notice, like before the championship. And you saw how well we played when we went back to a more, I wouldn't say conventional style, but almost. We still held on to the sweeper, like so. Like when you're changing your game plan mid-championship, you don't have it off to a T, and maybe that's where Tipperary came up short. Maybe if Tipperary had been playing this style the whole way since last November, December, and had it off to a fine art, you would probably maybe have a better chance of going the whole way. But when you're changing the game plan midstream, sometimes it just comes against you. And like maybe that's what happened, as Paul was saying, in the first half, where it looked like we were only playing one in the full forward line with Darren McCarthy. Looked like Senan Butler was just pulling out a little too far. I think that I know there was a bit of a breeze against us, and but Ben Miller was just looked like the spare man for a lot of the time, and sure, like he was just blocking up the space for her. We couldn't seem to pick out this ball in the corners, even when we had to go along with the puck outs. On top of Cahill English and Oisin O'Donoghue, there was nearly 2 or 3 Offaly lads hanging out of them, and then they were making sure the ball hit the deck, and that's where like they were so good on that breaking ball. And as Tony Deason added, and that was a very revealing piece like that. And we're kind of obsessed in Tip that we can't win our own ball. But how many times in a match in between two teams would you see clean catches in the air in a half forward line? 4 or 5. And yet we seem to have said like the key, and we see at senior level, breaking ball is the key currency. If you can't win that, if you can't get down to those breaks and win the breaks and win the rucks, you're probably going to lose more matches you're going to win. I think that area is so key.
Paul, I'm just thinking of a couple of years ago, the under-20 minor, the 2022 minor. And 13 of those players that played that day were involved in this match. And you look at who were kind of lined up as the main players back then. It was Tom Delaney and it was Paddy McCormick, neither of whom were available there. And I look at some of the lads who've really stepped up. Darragh McCarthy, he was a sub 2 years ago. Senan Butler, he was a sub 2 years ago. But Senan Butler has scored 5-7 this championship season. Like, that's outstanding. So, like, a lot of the player, other lads have had to step up, and I think that's a huge testament to what has been done.
Yeah, 2 lads you mentioned there are probably the 2 lads who've maybe come on the most. Like Senan Butler on that team 2 years ago was probably kind of a late substitute in a lot of games, and as far as I remember, he got the goal against Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final 2 years ago late on. That was a ball played to him by Darragh McCarthy, and Tom Delaney passed it off to him then at the end. So, but those 2 lads in particular really have come on, and Darragh McCarthy in with the seniors, I'd say, has brought him on a lot. But he's just he's a very intelligent player. Darragh McCarthy uses his body really well to kind of we saw it especially against Cork late on in that game, where he was kind of in that full forward line on his own, and he kind of 50-50 ball that was coming in, he was winning it and being fouled and things like that. But Senan Butler, just electric pace when he gets on the ball, and he's very you can see him in around rucks. He's only ever a flick away from just being gone. Like if the ball pops up to him, he's got great speed. And if they can continue kind of that level of development, they're very exciting prospects. And then the likes of Sam O'Farrell as well. I think he's really developed since that minor team as well. And he's big, strong, kind of a forward or midfielder now, but can go both ways. So there's plenty of talent in there. But I think the best thing about that group of players and what made them so easy to kind of get behind is even the other day, like there's no kind of give up in them. 8 points down, that goal goes in. It's a real sucker punch, the long ball into the back of the net. And I think TG Carr nearly missed it because straight away it was gone up the other end and into the back of the net from Senan Butler. And as Shane said, when the second goal went in, they got the next couple of points to bring it down to 3 points again. And even they still had moments where if one thing just changed a little bit differently, like Joe Egan dropped the ball late on, it was hand passed across, and it would have been a goal chance whether he scored or not, but just fumbled it. He missed an awful lot of hurling so far this year, so probably a little bit rusty. But they didn't play up to their potential, but they were still right there in that game up to the very end.
I know the players you mentioned. Like I would have thought like Paddy McCormick and Dan Ravenhill sort of cancelled each other out in terms of players who were missing. So in terms of, like you mentioned Joe Egan, Joe Egan, fully fit Joe Egan starts that game. Like he would give you an extra bit of power in the half hour line. And I think a massive loss for Tip on Saturday was Ronan Connolly. I thought Ronan Connolly at the start of the championship was absolutely unreal. Like he was he's one of the few guys we had up to the age. He's powerful, he's athletic. We could have if he probably would have started at half back, he was fit, and then if you were really in trouble, you could have put him into the middle of the field. So like I thought he was a really big miss. I thought there was a strange tactically that, okay, we knew we were going to set up with a sweeper and Brian Corvin was going to be that Sam O'Farrell didn't pick up Dan Burke rather than Adam Daly. Like Sam O'Farrell is a more natural defender, whereas Adam Daly, from my thinking, is more of a distributor, a sort of an attacking player. So I thought
he was brilliant at it against Cork, though. I mean, Daly was excellent at doing it.
He was, but I would have thought but Sam is more of a defensive orient. Like if you're and it was Dan Burke that won the game. Like
didn't Sam score 3 points against Cork as well, and did he get 1 or 2 here?
But I would have said Adam is Dan has more defensive, or sorry, Sam has more defensive instincts than Adam. Like so, and like Sam O'Farrell he man marked
Shane O'Brien
the first round of the championship. So like he was. I thought, look, I'm sure the management had their reasons for going that way, and look, Sam still had a fine game. I just thought Adam was sort of peripheral. He wasn't really as impressive as he was against Cork, and like Dan Burke was the difference. You look at the way the match pinned out. The 2 stars in each team, McCarthy and Screeney, were more or less well shackled. I thought Podge O'Dwyer did as well as anybody could on Screeney. Like, and then it was going to be a case of who on either team was going to be the next man up. And it was Dan Burke 1-3 from play, and like that's 6 points. That's the difference in the game. It was a game of they were very even across the board. It was just that they awfully had that big match winner in Burke, and look, they got a huge performance out of Barry Egan. Like you'll be listening to people from Offaly to say this guy is he's just a big presence at full forward. He doesn't score a lot yet. He ends up scoring 2 brilliant points, and his presence gets the goal as well. Like they just got big performances on the day, which are crucial in winning these games.
In terms of the atmosphere, like was it very partisan in there, Paul?
Yeah, so the atmosphere was unreal. Now, it was obviously weighted fairly heavily towards Offaly, but the Tip fans that were there really made their voices heard. There was a lot of them sitting right in front of us, so we could kind of hear it throughout the game. But the biggest roars of the game, that kind of 3-minute period where we had the 3 goals, that was just kind of memorable. The long ball goes in, and you're 8 points down. You're thinking this could end up badly, and then before you can even register that thought, Senan Butler has it into the back of the net, and then I felt like it was only a minute or 2 later again where Offaly got their second goal. But the biggest cheer, it's electric when the ball goes near Adam Screeney. It's crazy, and just hearing them talk and things like that, they seem to take it on so well for young lads. Like, they're he's like a superstar in Offaly, like, but anytime the ball got near him, and that point he got at the start, I know he only got that 1 point from play, but that just electrified the Offaly support, and in fairness from the support there was unreal from. But looking at it, I think was there 10 lads starting on both sides that started in 2022. So if the stars align next year, they could very easily meet again.
Yeah, that's like Screeney, like we did as well as you do against Screeney, really, Shane. And like he's a bit like when Brian Lohan used to clear the ball, or Tommy Walsh used to clear the ball for Kilkenny, the reaction from the crowd.
Oh yeah. He's like it's been a while since I've seen a young player electrify. He's sort of the biggest. He's arguably the biggest star in the country, even at senior level. Like he's the one name on everyone's lips. Like he's just anytime his touch is so good, and like I suppose he epitomised this Offaly team. Like, and we've heard in the build up to the Kenny game, the Dublin game, and then I had Offaly they're lacking a bit of size, but like they've won all 3 games. They've out hurled. Their hurling has won them this championship, and still at the end of the day, for all about size and tactics, it still comes down to the basics, as Leo O'Connor said: hook and block and hard work, desire. And they were the best team at all those elements this year, and that's why they're all Ireland champions. And that's why I think maybe I keen to get your thoughts on this. And like we played a sweeper this year, fine, but I do think that if we played conventional 15-on-15, we probably would have won the game. Like if we played 3 up, if we widened the forwards a bit and had more one-on-one matchups, okay, we might have been a little more exposed at one end. But you think if Senan Butler, Oisin O'Donoghue and Darren, what more one-on-ones rather than one-on-twos and one-on-threes, that we would have got way more scoring opportunities as well. So like I don't mind the sweeper. My first thoughts is a sweeper is a nice thing to fall back on if you feel your defense is, after a while, if you see your defense is weak, okay, bring a guy back, keep it tight. But if you have the type of forward we have, why would you not have more of them on the field at the same time? Unless the management decided our backs are not secure enough with one-on-one that we need to have an extra body back there.
Who's that question for?
Either or both, just to get your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I would have thought that there obviously is kind of a feeling that maybe defensively we're not strong enough, and I don't think you play a sweeper unless you feel that is going to be an issue. And what would Adam Screeney have scored if he was in a 6-on-6 situation, or our centre back is getting dragged out the field because, let's say, you're up against Dan Burke and he has to be marked. He's finding pockets. You have to mark him, follow him out, and all of a sudden then your team has been pulled wide open, and Screeney and the other lads inside have huge space. I would imagine it's for that reason that they feel it's required back there. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't mind the sweeper because that's how they've been playing all year, and Ben Curvin has been brilliant in that role. But it was just at times where we only had one in the full forward line. Like we had to have at least 2. Like there was, I'd say 4 or 5 times definitely where it was either Senan Butler or Darren McCarthy on their own. And kind of all the talk coming into the game was that Offaly full back line themselves, particularly under high balls, and that could be a bit vulnerable. And I suppose that's where the loss of Paddy McCormick was felt most, just because his aerial ability and size in that full forward line. And Oisin O'Donoghue is kind of a similar style of player, but you can't have him in the half forward line and the full forward line. So we probably missed out there. But I just thought, I would have liked to have seen a few more times where it was a long ball in towards Oisin O'Donoghue and you had Senan Butler or Darren McCarthy just lingering around the break, because either one of them, if Senan Butler gets onto a break, he's just bursting away. If Darren McCarthy gets onto one, he's going to do the right thing with the ball, either win a free or put it over the bar. But yeah, I wouldn't have minded the sweeper, but just we needed another body up the field. Now, things happen in the game. The wind was a factor in the first half for Tipperary, where lads were probably getting dragged down the field a bit. But I didn't mind the sweeper, but again, just needed another body up front.
Shane, is it as well like just when we do win the ball in our own half or around our own 65, that maybe that extra pass through the hands, we're not doing that so much, and we're going off on a solo run or we're hitting an aimless ball up the field, like just a little bit more composure on the ball, which when you're up against a partisan crowd and you'll tell me was it 4/5 Offaly or whatever, that it's very difficult to keep your composure, and especially then for Offaly to have that behind you. You get a score, the lift of energy you must get.
Yeah, but I would say it's an issue across all our hurling teams that we don't seem to be able to play a pass or two ahead. We're not very adept at clearing out space for the ball, a nice ball to be played into for somebody to run onto. Where like if you're playing Butler and McCarthy inside, you've really got to be playing the corners. But we didn't seem to play a lot of the corners in the first half. Like as if our half-backs in midfield got the ball, but it didn't look like they sort of knew. It was sort of what was the ideal game plan to do with it. Okay, we give Offaly credit to put pressure on. We know that, but like every team is going to put pressure on. But as you say, there probably was a few times where there was a little pop pass on maybe to Conor Martin. Conor Martin was always trying to drop deep into the middle of the field as well, and like we saw how good Kieran Foley was, 3 points in play, very unlucky maybe not to get a couple more. So like there were pockets around that middle of the field, and look, maybe we'll give Offaly credit. Maybe they decided, look, we're not going to let McCarthy and Butler beat us. We'll see will Tipperary be brave enough maybe to take the extra pass through the middle, and it worked out for them. So we'll give them the credit. But I do think it's an element through all our teams that we're not okay. If you're going to play an extra body back, fine. But you've got to know how to work the ball then into a quality ball, a good ball. And like when we did work in quality ball, like we were very, very dangerous. I thought we had the Offaly full back line in serious trouble the first 10, 15 minutes. We didn't really get enough quality ball in there to make it count.
19 players will be available again next year, Paul. So, I mean, Brendan Cummins is obviously, despite being disappointed, still has a bit of confidence around, going forward.
Yeah, it's unreal that there's that many underage again. I think out of the 18 players that played, is 16 of them underage again next year. Like it's unreal, and it's a chance for that group to gel together again and develop together again. And if see how much they've come on in the last 2 years, you'd be excited enough for next year as well. But it's just I don't know. It must be kind of like a last year, the fact that there's not more players to the age, let's say, that are. I think it's just Ben Curvin and Jack Collins from the starting team. I think Mason Cawley is underage again. I'm not 100% sure if you're sure about that, Shane. But apart from that, everyone else.
Ronan Connolly would have been overage if it was Ronan fully fit. He would have started. So yeah, like they're right. And sure, like Offaly are be more or less bringing a lot of the same crew back again. But like this, as I said, there's absolutely no guarantees. Like it's like Clare are going to have a strong team next year. Cork are rising, so like it's like if we get out of Munster next year, we'll be doing very, very well. And look, you don't know how many maybe Tipperary players and Offaly players will be on senior squads next year, and how maybe distracted could they be by senior focus, and will they be able to combine maybe playing senior on a Sunday and maybe midweek as well. So like to say, there's no guarantees, but look, we have the platform definitely to get back to a final next year. And look, it'll be interesting to see what the county board do in terms of, look, Brendan Cummins' term is up. Look, the smart money would be that he will get an extension, but then you have the possibility, like, would James Woodlock like to move up with the group from 2022 to take him on next year? I'm sure everybody likes the next rung on the ladder. So look, they have it. I think I said it in my it's a nice problem for the county board to have when they sit down and for their reviews and over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and you did a piece about it in the Guardian, which is available there now. But part of the quotes that you had from Cummins, and this isn't long after the game, so you have to frame it in that context. But he said the management game these days is finicky in a lot of ways. We just have to sit down with the county board and see what the story is. So within that, is there sort of reading between the lines in terms of like the county board have to make sure that the team gets X, Y, and Z to make sure we have the best possible chance?
Oh, definitely. But I didn't hear anything in terms of, I don't know whether whether there was whether there are elements of their preparations that we fell short in. Look, I have written a lengthy column this week in terms of the finances within the county board and the fact that things are tight at the moment. And look, we're not, like when we saw last week that the county board set up a kind of a training fund to raise money for the under-20s that were in the All Ireland and the minors. I said to myself, God, like, it's a nice concept, but that's the sort of thing a club does when they get to a county final. Is this that it just shows you where things are at the moment. Things are really, really tight, and like, it's not that the county board for years have been willfully wasting money. It's like everything, the cost of everything is going up, and looks like our income streams are not going up with it. And I sort of put out a kind of a call to the business community or some big players that have contacts that, look, we need help. We need people to get in contact with the county board and say, okay, what help do you need, like, in terms of getting a greater return of our sponsorship? It's like Tipperary is a big brand. Like, we need, like, you don't hear the same things going on in Dublin and Kerry in terms of having the money to fund things. Like, we're sort of hearing it in the Tip too often that Liam Cahill is having to fundraise for the hurlers, and Paul Kelly would like a bit more financial support in terms of the footballers. And look, and this is all just to stay at the level that a lot of everybody else is doing. Like, it's not that we're looking to find money to do more things. This is just to stay on a par with everyone else. So, like, I do think, and I think Pfizer have only signed up for one extra year this year. So that, reading between the lines, we're probably going to have to get a new jersey. If you're only signing up for a year's extension, it means they're probably not going to stay on in the long term. So, like, we do need an awful lot of help. And like, the county board draw is essentially just a fundraiser for clubs, really. Like, the county board only gets a small, like, of probably 1.7 million of a turnover. The county board probably only gets about 150, 200,000 of that. Like, the clubs get over half of it. The county board then has to use a large chunk of what they have for the prize fund, and then the remainder is maybe goes into coaching and games development. So, like, I think we're sort of in the same boat as where Clare are a couple of years ago, where a small bit of turmoil, but they used a bit of turmoil to good effect. They got good people in, they've got their structures in place, they've got their fundraising in place, they've got Carlowan is up and running, proper pitches put in sanded in there. Like, so look, this is an opportunity, I think, for really Tip to get the structures in place for where we can maybe be successful going in the long term.
Might move on to the Celtic Challenge final. I'm not sure if you had a chance to watch it over the weekend, Paul, but Kilkenny 118, Tipperary Blue 114. And just on the Tip side, Tony Maher scored 6 points. Larry Collins scored a goal. Sean Walsh with 2, and a number of other players scored a point each. But a red card early in the second half for Tipperary, Kyle O'Dowd, just seemed unbelievably harsh.
Was it a straight red or was that a second yellow? Because I actually just saw that. I watched about 5 minutes of it. Was it a straight red or second yellow?
Second yellow, and I just thought, and Shane was just going on before we went to air how harsh the first one was. And I was looking at the second one, and I was like, fair enough, there's a foul there, but a red card, it's kids more or less. I just thought unbelievably harsh.
Yeah, no, it definitely did look harsh, and like, I don't think anyone would have complained if it was just a free in. And in fairness, when that happened, and I was only kind of flicking in and flicking out of the game, I thought they were going to be under it here, but I think it was 4 points for a finish. Yeah. So they hung in there very well, but like that they've done well at that grade the last couple of years as well, and they have two teams reach the semi-final. One of them reached the final and just lose out by 4 points is a positive thing. So I don't think development or players is the problem in Tipperary, as Shane was saying there. Like, there's a couple of things I'd say the county board kind of need to get in check. One of them would be just that, like, finances and things like that. And Brendan Cummins even said after that, his management team has been brilliant throughout the year, and he said, there's only 3 or 4 of us were a lot of times doing the job of 2 or 3. So there's probably a bit in that tells you, maybe they were strapped in terms of getting the help they wanted throughout the year, maybe. But the other thing then is support. I think that there's a problem in Tipperary at the minute, and it's kind of been talked about a lot the last couple of weeks in terms of just the support behind the teams. Now, there's a lot of people who love hurling in Tipperary, but it's it's something the county board will have to look at. I don't know how you go about doing it, but like bringing everyone together. Like, you know, oftentimes you'd be out at matches and that, and there's more people talking negatively about Tipperary GAA and the teams than there is people just going supporting the game. So I don't know how you kind of go about rallying the county to all get behind the teams and get in one direction, but it's something that kind of I feel has to be done, because maybe the game against Cork, we outnumbered the Cork supporters in the under-20 game, but that's maybe, and after that we were outnumbered in every game at every age grade, I'd say, throughout the year. So those two, I suppose finances is probably a bigger thing to get right first, but yeah, the supporters, because they're all there, but it's just a matter of getting them 2 games and getting them in behind the teams.
Yeah, there's a fierce apathy at the moment, and I don't like. It's strange. Like there's no. We look at the electricity there is in Offaly at the moment. The electricity that there is in Limerick, success, and like we have a decent level of underage success, but like you go back to 2008 when Liam Sheedy came in and we won that Munster final and the crowds were coming, and I don't know whether that 15-year run, maybe we took a lot of things for granted. I don't know, maybe supporters are burnt out. I don't know. It's just there's a lack of energy for some reason. Even look at, maybe I've mentioned it a few times here, that you look at all the young people going to matches in other counties. Why don't we have gangs of young lads on the terraces? Like when our age, I love going to Páirc Uí Chaoimh in the summer, and there'd be you went for the crack, and we don't seem to have the numbers of young 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds that go to matches and enjoy the occasion, have the bit of crack. Like, why is that? Why can we not get our groups of kids or young teenagers go to matches the same as other teams? It's very strange. Like, we don't, we had a panel of 35 last weekend of under-20s. They all have friends. They all have clubmates. Where were all their friends and clubmates? Like, some probably went, but they didn't seem to go in large numbers. It's perplexing at the moment. It's something for. It'd be interesting to see what we could do to tap into that and start trying to engage with them more to come to games. Is it a finance thing? Potentially, but the Offaly fans are able to find the money to go to games. Like, so, I don't know. There definitely is an apathy at the moment. How you turn that around, I don't know.
But I would have found as well, in terms of the attitude, that people make up their mind very quickly on the senior team for sure, and maybe it permeates down. But like, people are like, I'll just watch the club instead, or Tip are no good, and in terms of like, people might have unbelievably high standards or are unbelievably harsh because maybe traditionally Tip have won this, that, and the other. That people are like, this is no good, and they just move on from it very quick, Paul.
Yeah, and that's not how kind of supporting a team works. Like, I'd be envious of the times there in the 90s, that the video of the Aidan Ryan goal is at 1991 where the Semple Stadium erupts, like, and I'd be envious of times like that, because it's hard to imagine any kind of scenes like that with Tipperary at the minute. And like, I'd love to say I have an idea, I have a solution, but I just don't know what it is. Like, there's an awful lot of negativity and a lot of that, like, this Tip senior team, they're no good. Like, we'll watch it on the telly. Like, but I don't know. It's a tough one to get your head around. Now, look, ticket prices and things like that have gone up an awful lot, and the £100 for the All Ireland and things like that. But we're not going to have to worry about that this year. But like, that is an issue. But everyone's paying the same ticket prices, so you can't really pin that down as the problem for Tipperary. So I don't know. There's a disconnect there somewhere, and sometimes, look, I'm obviously a bit biased coming from a media member, let's say, but we get very little access to the players in times, and I often say, like, if a certain Tipperary player walked in to someone's house, like, you mightn't actually know them because you don't see much of them, like, and with helmets, especially in hurling, you really kind of need to get players' images out there. But I'd be a bit worried about that in the county, like, people aren't getting to see the players. People don't know the players, and it's very easy to support a team when you know them and you know what they're fighting for or what they're going through, whatever, and you're able to get in behind them. And I think that's one thing maybe that could be improved on. But again, I'm a media member, of course. I'd love to be interviewing the players every week, but just little things like that to kind of bridge the gap between the supporters and the players.
Shane, there was a little bit of that, and to be fair, the last couple of years, there's been a good few little sponsor videos, crossbar challenge. So there has been a bit of an effort in terms of like doing stuff. Now, maybe that's partly to satisfy sponsorship criteria and give them the exposure and all that kind of stuff. But they've obviously dabbled in it, and maybe they can build it up. And I mean, it is trouble across the board that teams do not give access to their players at all to the media, and like people just think, oh, this is a negative. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Like Offaly put every player up for interview before the All-Ireland final, and it didn't affect them. So, and maybe it's
no media day before the Munster and Leinster this week is, like we're as GAA, like we're battling against all the other sports, like, and if young lads are sitting down turning on Sky Sports and they're, this is kind of a downtime now at the minute where it's just probably transfers and that they're talking about. This is where you need to kind of tap into that young generation and like especially for Dublin, like that it's not like they're in the Leinster final every year, like let's say maybe a Kilkenny are, but like they're usually on top of things like that. I thought like they'd be plastering their players everywhere this week. Now a lot of it is management just think it's going to be a distraction, but I'm hoping the way Offaly work things this week that Lee O'Connor just said interview everyone on the Sunday and then we'll go from there. And like no one is going to be asking Adam Screeney like what way do you want the ball played into you? What way are you going to set up? What are you looking to do? Like, you're just getting to know the players more than anything.
Shane, how do you think that Leinster final will go this weekend, Kilkenny against Dublin?
I have a sneaky suspicion for Dublin. You think about where Dublin are now to where they were 2 weeks ago. They came into their two big games against Kilkenny and Galway in decent fettle, but they kind of didn't really know where they stood. Now they do. They know they're as good as Kilkenny. They just didn't finish them off in the Parnell Park. Then they comfortably defeated Galway. Galway had a man sent off early, but I think Dublin would have still beaten them anyway. I thought they just had a game plan. They knew what they were about compared to Galway, so I still think they won it. And I think that the open space of Croke Park will definitely suit them more than Parnell. So I think there's a massive opportunity. I think if 3 weeks, Keane O'Sullivan's probably touch and go. Hamstring, to be probably a bit soon. Yeah.
He's a serious injury.
Okay. So he's probably gone. Yeah, but they didn't miss him. I think they have the athleticism to trouble Kilkenny. I really do. I think Adrian Mullen looks like he could be back for Kilkenny, but I think there's rumours that Mikey Carey is out and John Donnelly is out. And like remember, was it the COVID year when Dublin came from 16 down? That's not as good a Kilkenny team. That was a better Kilkenny team then as it is now. I have a sneaky suspicion Dublin will do it on Sunday or Saturday night.
What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I think this Kilkenny team, they've kind of been spluttering along at times, and if John Donnelly is missing, like he's been huge for them this year in terms of when the backs are to the wall, he was winning ball and scoring unreal points throughout the game. So it's a huge chance for Dublin, and Micheál Donoghue, I'm sure is a good man to have in there for this setup coming into a big game like this. So yeah, it's funny. Like I always think looking at some of the Dublin teams, like you can nearly tell even if they didn't have a jersey on that they're a Dublin player. Just they're so good running with the ball and so comfortable playing the ball in around their half back line and things like that. So look, they'll probably need a break or two to go their way because Kilkenny are Kilkenny, and in a Leinster final they'll often find a way. Like look at last year. So yeah, I give Dublin a very good chance anyway, but it's hard to kind of predict Kilkenny losing a Leinster final until you actually see it.
Yeah, with Dublin as well, it's almost like they need to be 10 points ahead against Kilkenny to win by one. They tend to find a way to lose some of these games, even though often the quality is there. The Munster final then, Limerick against Clare. It'll be a bloodbath, Shane, won't it?
Yeah, they're so familiar with each other now at this stage. The hype over this one doesn't seem to be the same because
they haven't promoted it.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's guaranteed. Look, it'll be what 45,000 sellout. Look, I think we all know that. Look, Clare's need to win Munster is greater, but really and truly, like it's Clare win Munster fine, but if they don't win the All Ireland, is the year's success? Not convinced. I think the All Ireland is still the be all and end all. Like, and look, I still think it'll be a humdinger of a game. I think the fact that Limerick could be missing key players and Clare look like they'll be at full strength with Tony Kelly back. Like, I think if there's ever an opportunity for Clare to win it, this is it. I think they've got to do it. That doesn't mean if they don't that they can't go on and win an All Ireland. Because I think remember 2 years ago, like they sold out in Munster and they were psychologically bet after that. Like I think last year that wasn't the same. Like tactically, they messed up in that semi-final against Kilkenny. Look, I think Clare. I think Clare might get over the line this one.
Yeah, what do you think, Paul? I mean, for my money, Limerick seem to be getting stronger, and the wobbles they had earlier in the season, they seem to have stabilised. Whereas Clare, I feel like since they collapsed against Limerick the first day out, that they're a little bit up and down within games.
Yeah, I don't think either team has reached their top form yet. Like even Clare against Tipperary, if Clare were truly unsung that day, they probably would have bet us by 10 points, but they kind of leave teams in games a lot of the time. And, they had to score, what was 326 against Clare or against Cork to beat them by 2 points. But like, if they can feed Shane O'Donnell, he's on this rich vein of form where every ball he goes into, he's winning, he's turning his man, he's causing chaos in there. So that'll be a key one for me. And I suppose Peter Duggan in the half forward line continuing to win ball. But if they can just feed Shane O'Donnell as much as they can, he's unbelievable. And the form he's in, like he was pretty much unmarkable against Tipperary that day. And like he missed a goal straight in front of the goals where another day he's burying that in the back of the net. He could have had an unbelievable day. But I think Clare are very much outsiders in this. So there's probably a bit of value there in terms of the odds on the game. But yeah, I'd give Clare a really good chance, but again, it's just probably between the 2 years now, getting over Limerick in a Munster final for Clare rather than not having the talent. I'd say they have the talent. It's just about can they, believe that they can beat them on the big day.
But like in fairness, like Clare know they can go toe to toe with Limerick. It's like it's all about winning the game. Like, and look, Limerick. I think Limerick looked good against Waterford, but look, Waterford it looked a little off after the Clare game. They played a sweeper. Like the Cork have shown it and Clare have shown it. The best chance you have of taking on Limerick is to go toe to toe with them. You do not give them an extra player at the back to work the ball out. And look, Clare, it's gas that John Conlon. John Conlon, I thought was super against Tip, but then Jake Morris was given the freedom around centre forward. John Conlon doesn't mark, but Clare accept that. They are prepared to go toe to toe. They're prepared to give up big scores because they know they have the forwards at the other end of the field to score against you. And it's just about can our backs do enough on the day, and on any given day to win. And I like that attitude. They're prepared to take a risk in terms of maybe conceding scores at one end because it just gives you a better chance of scoring at the other.
And then in the other game that's on this weekend, Paul, the Joe McDonagh Cup final on Saturday night, Willie Maher of Ballingarry is managing Laois, and they're hoping to beat Offaly, who are going to be on the crest of a wave. But that would be a very nice achievement for them. Now they stole a victory against Offaly earlier in the year. Paddy Purcell, I think, got a late goal, but should actually be a great occasion, and Offaly will probably bring far more than they would have brought thanks to the victory in the 20s.
Yeah, I'd say Laois were kind of sickened that Offaly won the under-20s because I'd say Offaly now, especially with a lot of, I think there 4 or 5 players involved from the Offaly under-20s in their senior team. So there's going to be a huge Offaly crowd there. But these Joe McDonagh Cup finals often take a life of their own. Like last year's game was unbelievable altogether. So Geez, I haven't seen much of Laois this year, but these are Joe McDonagh Cup finals. It's probably going to be a high-scoring game, and whoever can get over the line. But they're often very good games. I'm looking forward to it myself now. Although it's on, I think Saturday at 3:30. The Tip footballers on at 4, so I probably won't see much of it. But I'd say Laois weren't too pleased seeing the Offaly under-20s win, because I'd say Offaly supporters now, they're kind of been commended a lot for their support of the under-20s, but a lot of Offaly people you'd be talking to would be saying half of these people won't be at the Joe McDonagh. But I think because of the way that final went and winning it in the crest of a wave, I'd say they're going to bring a huge crowd up to Croke Park.
I'm finding this one very hard to predict, because while Laois won the round robin game, Offaly were ahead a lot of that game. So Offaly were the better team that day. But I think Laois sort of changed their coach midstream, and I think Laois were kind of only finding their feet of how they were going to play, and like they've absolutely mowed down everybody else since then. Okay, they put out a B team against Westmeath, so arguably, you think Offaly have the motivation to overturn the group game, but arguably you say Laois have actually improved since that, because they're playing more confident hurling since then. Like this is fine margins of this. I think this is going to be a lot like the Carlow game last year. It'll be high scoring. There won't be an awful lot of quality defending. It's probably going to have arguably a bigger crowd in for that game than will be for the Leinster final afterwards. Jesus, I don't know. I think extra time. This is tight stuff. I don't know. I could see both teams winning it. I don't know who to come down on, really. I can't.
Yeah, and sure, like I'd say Offaly obviously have the trajectory in terms of like where they're going with these players, but Laois probably have a bit more big game experience over the years. So I know Tykala might just slightly nudge for Laois, but Paul, you mentioned the Tip footballers being on this weekend against Limerick, but just about stayed alive in the Tailteann Cup with a 75th minute Stephen Grogan goal. So I mean, just in terms of the table from the group, I'll just put that up here for what it's worth. So Sligo finished top, Antrim second. That was on 5 points apiece. Then Tip with 2 points and Wexford with 3. So, as we know, impossible tournament to get knocked out of, or football in general, impossible to get knocked out. But I'm sure Paul Kelly would be delighted. That's some vindication for the work and the injuries he's had to go through this year.
Yeah, I was delighted now for the players, because like I've been at most of their games. I wasn't at the one the other day because I was down in Kilkenny, so I've probably a bit of a bad luck omen I am when I'm actually at the Tip football games. But delighted for them, because it's been a very tough year. Like, it's been very, very tough, and a lot of even Tipperary supporters, when it comes to football, would be very just kind of brush aside the footballers. They're no goods, whatever. Or what are they like since 2020 kind of thing? And it's a completely different team altogether since last year, I'd say, never mind even 2020. But last minute goal, Paddy Feehan, long ball in. I think Stephen Grogan got a flick on it and into the back of the net, and really unexpected, because I was actually probably fearing for the worst before this game, because Wexford destroyed Tip down and feathered in the league. I think was it 4-10 to 8 points, something like that, a right beating on the day. Tip, before the Watford-Longford results, Tip would have had to win by 20 odd points or something like that. So you're kind of thinking this is last game of the season kind of vibe for Tip. But then Watford bet Longford, and that meant that the score difference was there for Tip if they could just win the game. And unreal, I'd say. Some of the players maybe mightn't have expected that they're going to be playing for another week, given that. But I heard stories of different lads had holidays booked and things like that had to change around. But it's unreal. And like, Limerick aren't going unreal themselves. Like, they had a very poor league campaign. They did beat, I think, Offaly in London, but you saw Offaly seemed to just completely not down tools or whatever, but they were not up for this Tailteann Cup at all. And so it's the
best draw they could have got out of Laois and Limerick.
Yeah.
Like, if you're handpicked, it's not playing down. Like, I think of the most winnable away games you could have got, I think definitely Limerick was the one to get. Like, they know each other, they're very familiar with each other.
Yeah, and they don't have, like, Tip are going to be missing. They were missing Stephen O'Brien and Conor Sweeney last weekend as well. So By all accounts, it was 3 unreal goals that they got. Paddy Fian's goal was meant to be unbelievable. Ran a long distance with the ball before burying it, and Shawnee O'Connor has been in great form as well. So look, they're going to have a chance now, and it's sport works in strange ways. You never know what could happen after that. But I thought now coming out after the Sligo game, and they got a really bad beating that day, that it was going to be another tough weekend against Wexford. But you just never know. And
like I suppose it's a vote of confidence on the players and the management. I know I was listening to the commentary, and there was a sort of resignation that, okay, if Tip lose, that maybe this could be the end. But look, there's no doubt that for all our shortcomings on the field, maybe this year, the players have stayed fully behind the management. They see maybe that there's a long-term development going to have to come here. Maybe we're just going to have to suffer for the moment. Like that. Look, when Stephen O'Brien is injured again, Conor Sweeney, who was magnificent up in Antrim, injured. Like, we can't afford to be without any of these key players. And look, we're not. Look, we only scored 8 times against Wexford on Saturday, but look, it was enough to win the game. And look, there definitely seems to be definitely a fostering in terms of this group is tight. It's all about maybe how can we kick on to the next level? How can we get more from less? Like, how can we make ourselves, I suppose, get ourselves more steady at the back, and then maybe take more chances going the other end? Because like I did hear, like it was a Wexford kicked 15 wide, so look, like they had enough chances to win the game. Like we more or less took nearly every chance we got. So obviously, look, we're struggling to maybe be structured enough defensively from where we can transition into attack off counter attacks, but maybe not to the same extent that we see Derry doing at the moment, where it's almost kamikaze stuff. Like, but look, it's great to be still there. Look, a very winnable game. Get to a quarter final. Look, I think hopefully we can get through the weekend. And look, the longer this day going, the better it shortens the run into next year. The players are developing all the time. Like, the more training sessions, the more to get bonding together, the better. And hopefully maybe we'll be in a better position come the league next year to have a more positive campaign.
Yeah, you're kind of mentioning Derry there. Paul, what do you make of the mood music around Mickey Hart? Obviously the performances have not been good, but I'm sure everyone saw the WhatsApps flying yesterday, and obviously we're always fairly skeptical around the WhatsApp forwards thing, but geez, like it almost feels like they just need to be put out of their misery for this season.
And it's a bad sign usually when the county board comes out and say he's our full back or whatever. But obviously with all those messages, they probably felt they had to come out and say something. And there was some meeting, I think, yesterday or whenever, regarding Mickey Hart, I suppose, and everything. But yeah, it was a strange appointment from the very start. And I don't know, whatever's happened to them, they look a completely different team, because during the league and all that, it looked like this is a Derry team that are going to be in the semi-finals of the All-Ireland at least. Like, I'm sure they could be gone out with the whole thing come this weekend. So tis mad. Like, they look like a completely different team. Whatever's happened, I don't know, were they overtrained, were they what? But it's 2 different teams out there.
There's a couple of elements,
but taking over Everton.
Yeah, but there's a couple of elements, like you could say maybe they put a lot of store in the National League and say fine, and look, they are missing players. Like, there's some that have picked up a lot of injuries to key players. So like, that's one thing in terms of like your structure can, like, when you're down key bodies, particularly the centre back and the wing back. And then I suppose the one thing, when results start going against you, that it exposes a bit of discipline. Now they're starting to get guys sent off doing stupid things like against Galway, McKinless, and then what's his name? Was it McFall? Is it came on? Yeah. More or less looked like he wanted to get sent off from the moment he came on. Like, so, but and again, it comes down to management. I do think one thing that's not being looked at here is that Derry have been playing this high wire act for a couple of years now, and the good coaches will finally figure out how to make what Derry do turn it against them. And Jim McGuinness has done that, and Kieran McGeeney has now done that. Like, if you're look, they've been playing this style nearly for 2 years, and I wouldn't put it all on Mickey Hart. In fairness, like they were doing this under Rory Gallagher, they were doing it under Mina, where they flood the attack. But the one key thing with that is that you cannot afford to lose the ball out the field. If you were going to lose the ball, you lose the ball inside. At least you cannot afford to be turned over out the field, because you just don't have the numbers on a counter attack. And I think that the clever coaches have figured out how to play that. But that comes back on the management to say how have they not? They should have realised after the Donegal game that they'd been found out, that other good coaches would think, okay, what did Donegal do that day that made them so that broke down their system? That Mickey Harton and Kevin Devlin, I think is the coach. Like, they should have figured out then, okay, we've been exposed. What do we do to change this? And they haven't done that. You're looking at all the goals Derry are conceding now, and it looks like the same goal every time. You feel was it somebody saying it's a brilliant joke going around there, sort of that about the I keep, how many times in the game now do you see the Derry goalie running back to his own goal? That comes down to coaching.
Okay, well, look, Paul, you have to head away there. I know. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll get there again.
Yeah.
Cheers, Paul. Just a final topic then. The Tipperary Camogie team, maybe this will be the one source of positivity or true positivity for Tip this year. 5-22 to 13-point win over Derry, not to be sneezed at, and backing up the Waterford win. So Dennis Kelly has them humming.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a bit of a banana skin going up to play Derry. Like Derry, okay, they were only up from intermediate, but they had a big win over Antrim the week before. So look, they were coming in with a bit of confidence, but like Tip blitzed them, and off the back of the confidence building win over Waterford, like it was a very good win. They have Antrim next Saturday in the Rag at 2:00. It's probably a game they'll be expected to win too. I know they're having a bit of a day where the All-Ireland winning minors will be the special guests on the day. So look, hopefully that'll generate a big crowd there. And look, you have the Limerick game away after that. Look, it's all building up to that last group game against Kilkenny. So where you're probably thinking, look, if Tip win that, they'll get straight to an All-Ireland semi-finals group winner. So it's the schedule has turned out pretty good for Tip, where they have the Waterford and Kilkenny games at the start and finish, and the winnable ones in the middle. So look, they'll hopefully get their results over the next couple of games and stay on course. Like they're building with confidence. They put a good structure into the team. They put Clodagh McIntyre back into the half-forward line, and I think she got 1-4 from play last week. Emer McGrath is playing well. Karen Kennedy's still playing to a high level. They're getting minutes into the likes of Mary Ryan again. So things seem to be really gelling. Emer Heffernan in the half-forward line, and Cartavan coming off the bench getting more minutes too. They're really building a nice squad. And mentioned to the juniors too, they had another big win away to Tyrone. They're a fish out of water in the Premier Junior grade, really. They're an intermediate team. So, but that brings its own pressure too. It really is all Ireland or bust for the junior, the second team to win that junior championship. That's not putting any pressure on them. Well, maybe it is, but I suppose it's something they're just going to have to accept. And the likes of Armagh and Roscommon and the likes of those teams, that they'll be the ones when they come up against them, they'll be the teams that they also be judged against, and making sure they're performing those days.
Just one final thing then before we finish up. It's a week and a half out now, but we know that Tipperary minor hurlers are finally back in action. This is going to be against Galway in the semi-final. So, they've been waiting in the wings for a while. Good chance to, I suppose, settle the team down and go again and sort of prepare the team after the win over Clare in the Munster final. So good to know who we're against finally.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. You think by the time Tip play, it'll be been about 4 or 5 weeks since they won the Munster title. So it's a chance that they could have enjoyed it, taper things down. I suppose it offered maybe Woody and maybe Chaplain McGrath. So it's Cormac McGrath, the coach. Maybe to do a bit of stuff on the coaching field in terms of maybe things that maybe have cropped up, maybe sharpening things up again. Because like it would have been a busy time in terms of playing all those games in a short period of time. Not you were really only maybe tapering back to play another game again. So, but then you're looking in the meantime, you're playing a Galway team that have won 2 games on the bounce to beat Waterford, and then last Monday beat Derry in the quarter-final. So Galway have that bit of match sharpness under their belt. I know there's no fixture yet. I'm hearing rumours that it could be Friday evening week in Limerick, so that semi-final. So, look, there's positives and negatives of having games versus having a rest. So look, I don't think it'll be any major excuse come when that semi-final is played, and then you're looking at Kilkenny and Clare on the other side, and Kilkenny have been as impressive on the other side. But I've always felt that there's a chance that Tipperary and Clare could meet for a third time, and I wouldn't rule it out maybe in the All-Ireland final. So look, there's still between the minor Camogie team, the Tip senior footballers, both and the both Camogie teams, there's still a lot of for Tip supporters to get after, particularly the Camogie team. Like they're really, I think they're a team that's really going places, and like I'd love to see maybe supporters getting in behind them over the next few weeks, and particularly on the hurling side of things. It was like, we know, look, I see fixtures are starting to creep out now for the mid and the North championships over the next few weeks, and look, they'll take on their own bit of focus in their own right. But look, just because the Tip senior hurlers are out doesn't mean there are other teams really to get in behind over the next few weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, that's it for the show today. A reminder that the Nina Guardian is on sale right now. And look, we'll chat to you again next week, Shane.
Talk to you.